Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Parenting While Black 2026. Oh my goodness, I see folks from all over. I just saw Detroit, Pennsylvania, my hometown, Chicago, West Virginia, Florida, Oregon. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in. Parenting While Black 2026. Raising Black children in the digital age, exploring culture, technology, and liberation. Welcome, 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 welcome. Come on in. Welcome. I see folks from California. Oh, yeah, New Mexico. Awesome. Connecticut, Mississippi, all over. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Come on in, get settled. Um, get your pen out if you're old school like me, if you're going to take copious notes. Just come on, get your cell phones. You're going to take notes. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I see you from Tennessee. Welcome, welcome. Come on in. Welcome. Parenting While Black 2026. Welcome. Nova Scotia, Canada. Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Parenting While Black 2026. My name is Dr. Kimya Barden. I will be your host today. And before we begin, we have a few housekeeping things we need to go through. Today's conversation will be in Spanish and English. In your webinar controls, click Interpretación. Click the language that you would like to hear. And then to only hear the interpreted language, bear with me, click mute original audio. Live captioning is also available for today's conversation. In your webinar controls, click Show Captions. Select your speaking language. To adjust the size of your subtitles, click Caption Settings. You can also select View Full Transcript. Welcome. Indiana, I see you. Welcome. Come on in. Welcome, Parenting While Black 2026. We do have a Q&A and chat feature. So if you want to ask the presenters a question, use the Q&A feature to ensure our presenters see your questions. If you have a comment or technical issue you want to share, use the chat feature to speak with other attendees and BTS support staff. Make sure you choose the all panelists and attendees option so everyone can see your comment. Welcome, South Carolina, Oregon, New Jersey, Boston, Massachusetts. Welcome. Come on in. Welcome. Thank you to our wonderful partners who support our Parenting While Black conversation, including SEED, the Center on the Ecology of Early Development, Equity Research Action Coalition, and the Vital Village. Welcome, welcome. Okay, so today's panelists are phenomenal, and they include Dr. Priscilla Binford, who's a narratologist and media theorist, whose work bridges child development, storytelling, technology, and racial justice to imagine and bring into being all online and offline environments that support children's positive development. She is motivated by the belief that Black children and all children deserve ecosystems that nurture their wholeness, creativity, and joy. As a senior fellow at the Frameworks Institute, since 2021, she has contributed to strategic communication initiatives across a range of issue areas, including child and adolescent development, health justice, and economic and racial justice. Priscilla also chairs the board of directors of Fair Play, a nonprofit fighting to protect children from exploitative online environments and dedicated to ending the staggering influence of corporate marketing on childhood and children. In March 2024, she joined a small cohort of thought leaders as a Public Voices Fellow on racial justice in early childhood. This fellowship was launched by the National Black Child Development Institute in partnership with the Op-Ed Project. Dr. Binford's advocacy work draws from her academic training, which offered analytical tools for understanding fundamental aspects of message engagement and reception. To complement this training, she earned industry-recognized certificates in user experience design, Gestalt psychology and web design, and chatbot building. Currently, she is writing a book aimed at a popular audience about how online communications technology impacts personal and professional relationships. She calls this book The Tech Between Us. Welcome, Dr. Priscilla Benford. We also have Dr. Desmond Upton Patton, who's the 31st Penn Integrates Knowledge University professor and the Waldo E. Johnson Jr. Professor of Communication at the University of Pennsylvania. He holds joint appointments in the School of Social Policy and Practice and the Annenberg School of Communication, with secondary appointments in the Department of Psychiatry, at the Perelman School of Medicine, and at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. Dr. Patton's groundbreaking research examines the relationship between social media and gun violence, grief, and loss, focusing on how online communities influence offline behavior. His work has made him the most cited and widely recognized scholar in this critical area of social science. Early research focused on detecting trauma and preventing violence on social media has evolved into broader investigations of language analysis, into algorithmic bias and artificial intelligence. He currently serves as a member of Spotify's Safety Advisory Council, the Ethics and Equity Advisory Council, TikTok's US Content Advisory Council, and is a trusted advisor to several AR startups. As a social work scientist, Dr. Patton identified that traditional data science methods often fail to capture the cultural and linguistic nuances of predominantly Black and Hispanic youth. In response, he developed a contextual analysis of social media, or CASM, framework, which integrates culture, context, and inclusion into machine learning and computer vision analysis. He's also pioneering a new research agenda on joy, developing a practical and theoretical framework for integrating joy into AI model development as a tool for equity, imagination, and human connection. Lastly, he's a member of the National Academy of Medicine, an Obama Foundation USA leader, a Mozilla Rise 25 change agent, a presidential leadership scholar, and one of Rock Health's top 50 in digital health. Welcome, welcome, welcome. All right. There you are. I see you, Dr. Patton. Then Dr. Benford, we can see you. There you are. Awesome, awesome. So feel free to come off mute so we can hear you.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, hello,
Hi,
hello.
hi. Good to be here.
Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this conversation. You'll see my eyes dart down because I am in my super duper nerd exciting mode. So I'm taking copious notes. But again, welcome to Parenting While Black 2026. Today we're talking about AI, social gaming, social media, and its impact on Black children's development. So I'm just going to spew out a little data points. So the data is clear, right? AI, social media, social gaming use by youth is not just on the rise, it's here, right? It's up to 95% of youth ages 13 to 17 report using social media platforms, including social gaming. In addition, roughly 1 in 5 US teens say they're on TikTok, YouTube, almost constantly. And then at the same time, 64% of teens say they use AI chatbots, including 3 in 10 who do so daily. Okay, so I'm a mom of 4. My kids are 7, 9, 11, and 24, so I can definitely relate to those statistics. But I want to ground the discussion first. Dr. Desmond, can you just tell us what, in your own word, what is AI? What is social media?
Absolutely. It's really wonderful to be here, and thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this really important issue. So first, let's just break it down. So social media is basically a set of apps and sites where people create profiles and post content and connect through likes and comments and shares and direct messages. The biggest feature is the feed, the endless scroll of videos and posts. And it feels like, you're choosing what you watch, but the platform is also choosing what it shows you next. And so when people ask, what sites matter, I like to keep it simple. For adults are spending a lot of time on platforms like Facebook and Instagram and YouTube and WhatsApp. Now, a lot of teens, however, spend time on TikTok and Instagram, Snapchat, and YouTube. And so the exact mix changes every year, but the bigger point is that these spaces are where young people are hanging out, they're learning social norms, and they're building their identity. In my own work, I like to describe social media as a neighborhood, right? So it's a neighborhood because it helps us understand what's really happening in this space. So in a neighborhood, you have the main street and the park and the corner store, the front porch, the back rooms where people talk privately. You can tell that I'm coming from a city. But social media has all of those things as well. But your feed is the main street. The comments can be the sidewalk conversations, and group chats become the porch. And then DMs are those private rooms, right?
Hmm.
These are places where you might feel safe, places that might feel a little chaotic, and people you want close and people that you try to avoid. It's all happening in this space, right? So that's why it feels like a real neighborhood. So what you see shapes what starts to feel normal for you and your feed. Now, here's where AI comes in. AI is basically just a set of tools that helps us run that neighborhood. It decides what gets recommended and what goes viral and what you see again and again and again. And it's also used to flag content, and remove content, and sometimes to create content. So two kids can open the same app and live in completely different neighborhoods because the AI is customizing the experience based on what they watch, like, pause, and search for. That is why parents cannot treat social media like television. It's
Hmm.
not one channel, it's a personalized world that is constantly adapting. And so when we talk about kids and social media today, we have to talk about AI and how it's shaping what they see and what they feel and what they think is normal. And I'll just end with this. AI doesn't just respond to what kids like. It can also shape what they end up liking by repeating the same themes in content time and time again. That is the part that we really have to take seriously.
Thank you. Oh, thank you so much. What I think someone said, what a great explanation. Thanks for getting us started. Dr. Priscilla, how can you chime in and let us know what social gaming is, as well as your thoughts about AI as well?
Well, social gaming platforms are similar to social media in a lot of ways, in the sense that what primarily motivates young people to participate in these platforms is the opportunity to socialize with people who they might not be able to spend time with in real life. And so some examples of social gaming platforms are Fortnite and Roblox. Those are the two that my co-researcher, Rachel Franz, and I spent the most time looking at. And that was because we did a project called Buying to Belong, where we interviewed kids between the ages of 9 and 17 about gaming. And those two platforms were some of the most popular. They played other games like Call of Duty and Animal Crossing, things like that. But Fortnite and Roblox, I'm sure most people have heard of them. And so, one way to think about these platforms, obviously, you can play games on them. And like I said, you can socialize on them. But the other thing that you can do there is shop. And the reason that young people like to shop on these games is because that's part of the fun. You have your avatar and you can customize it with a bunch of things that are available there. So you can buy different clothes, you can buy different hair if you're on Roblox, skins if you're on Fortnite, all kinds of things. And this is one of the ways that the people in the games gain status or lose status, depending on the objects that they have in their possession, the virtual objects they have in their possession. So I like to think of social gaming platforms as like a combination of the kind of arcade that I used to go to when I was a kid and a mall. It's like that together. And
Yes.
AI is involved in them in a lot of ways. One of the ways is that say you're playing a game where you work in teams. Sometimes, this is fairly recent, a AI might join your team and be a player there so that you don't have to wait for a complete team to be there. Some games, there's a lot of exploration you do in these games. There might be what is called a non-playable character, an NPC character, and that might be juiced up with AI so that it can respond to you in ways that you like, or just always be different so that the game makes the game more interesting. The other thing that can happen in games, you can use AI to adjust the difficulty level so that kids don't get frustrated. And one of the things that games do quite well in what they're meant to do is instill a sense of, in gaming, they call it fiero, pride. And
Mm.
so you have to feel like you're really achieving something. That means it can't be too easy. But if it's too hard, then that's not fun either. So these are some of the ways that you encounter AI. Another place where AI is used is in real-time content moderation. So, because it's like a game like Roblox, so many players at once, it would be impossible to moderate that without AI. So you've got AI doing that, and that's where some of the bias, it's one of the many places where some of the bias can creep in. And I think that Desmond, a lot of the things that he said about social media apply to what's going on in AI. And I want to not monopolize the time, but I think that's
Yeah.
a good place to end it there. And I'm happy to ask any more questions about that research project or just social gaming more generally.
No, thank you. This is good. So, my mind, I share with everyone. I'm a mom of four, and so whenever we go to birthday parties, I say, "Well, what do your friends want? They want these Robux for Roblox." So this is just timely for me, and I see other folks in the chat. It's timely for them too. Some folks said uh, Roblox and Minecraft might be addicted. Another participant said Roblox might be a little scary. So I want to stay there, but talk about what are like the pro-social or positive behaviors that come about via social media, social gaming, and AI. Before we talk about maybe the adverse stuff, like how is it beneficial to children and their development?
Happy to jump in here. I see, I really love this question because oftentimes when we have conversations about gaming, social media, it is just negative and it's scaring parents. And I think that's the wrong approach. So I appreciate a moderated and balanced conversation because it's not all bad. Um, I'm going to take the social media and AI space. And so I think that for teens, I think there are a lot of positive benefits, and I'm going to talk about at least three benefits that I've seen in my own work and from the work of others. One is, I think, when they help young people find community, we're seeing lots of young people, in particular young Black folks and Black folks with intersectional identities, be able to find themselves in other people online, which I think is really helpful and useful. I think in some instances they give folks real practice with social skills. And so in the communities that I work in, I see young people being able to have conversations about deeply personal, really hard things, mental health challenges in ways that they may not have with someone face to face, but they're willing to have these conversations online. And then lastly, I think when they keep young people safe without treating them like suspects. And so oftentimes the kind of engagement that happens with young people is policed and hyper surveilled. And we're seeing in particular young Black and brown young folks be able to have connections and communications without that deep level of surveillance for some. So, for a lot of Black youth in particular, online spaces, they're not just entertainment, they become community spaces. And I've seen this time and time again, particularly in communities that are impacted by high levels of gun violence. And so these become communities where youth keep up with their friends and relationships across different neighborhoods. They share music and humor, they talk about sports, they feel seen. And these are also spaces where young people process real life, and including grief and violence and stress. And so they're able to get those things off their chest. And you'll see some young teens use memes and jokes to cope or post tributes when someone dies or check in with each other when something bad is happening in their city. So I think that that is really pro-social. It's care, it's
Yeah.
joy, it's community protection, and it's kids learning how to show love out loud.
Yeah, well, thank you. I see hearts flying. I see folks clapping it up. I see folks really just agreeing with what you said, Dr. Desmond, this idea that there are some benefits, right? There are some benefits to social media, particularly as it relates to certain groups that might be marginalized from mainstream culture. And that is cultivating this wonderful space, this communal space. Dr. Priscilla, how would you add to that as it relates to the social gaming?
Yeah, so like I said, social gaming and social media have a lot in common. And so when we interviewed the young people about what motivates them to spend time in these places, there were three positive things that emerged. And the first one, and they're just so much in line with what Desmond was saying. But socializing, we right now live in a world where it's very difficult for young people, and particularly young people of color, to be together outside in the world without arousing suspicion. And
Yeah.
so in the gaming space, they can be there with each other. And that is something that they talked about as a real benefit. Um, and the other thing that everyone talked about in our group goes back to the customizing. It's a place where they found, they could play around, with creative self-expression for the young people who for a lot of reasons having to do with bias where they lived. Like, for example, I'm thinking about one young person who lived in a very small town and was trans and in school and stuff dressed, in a way not to call attention, but in the game could created an identity that they felt was in line with how they wanted to be able to look in the real world and how they intended to when they got somewhere else. And so that was something that several young people brought up. Either they experienced that firsthand or had friends who found that to be a really great thing about spending time in these spaces. And then, so we labeled that theme self-fashioning, that there's a lot of ways in which you can explore like what you could be, and you interact with all these people and you get to see that, you get to try on these different personalities. And that's something, I remember doing a little bit like in, when I was younger, but in the games you can do it bigger, like more
Yeah.
elaborately. So, and then having fun. And those, having fun is related obviously to the self-expression and the socializing. But, just the exploring the new games. Some of the young people are creator players. Some of them were collectors of like these virtual objects, and they found that to be very a lot of fun. So those are the things that the young people talked about, and they were extremely um, excited
Yeah.
about being able to do that in these places.
Yeah, no, thank you again. Folks are hearts are blasting, handshakes are clapping. So folks are concurring, Dr. Cecilia, with what you're saying. One participant said, the social gaming space can be a place where you can show up as you are and not be judged. So I think your words really speak volumes to what our participants are feeling as well. Hate to be this person, but I'm a bit only because we have to look at both sides, as they say, look at both sides. So let's talk just briefly about how do social gaming, social media adversely, maybe negatively impact psychosocial, spiritual, um, cognitive development for Black children and teens?
Well, since I'm already off mute, I'll go ahead and say that, the other theme, there are several themes that we found, but the other theme that emerged, this one really, some of the stories just pulled at my heart, but we called it exclusion as challenge. And so on the one hand, you have the young people finding, some of the young people are finding community. All of the young people we talk to, they're finding some kind of community, but then they're in this larger space that is technically moderated, but oftentimes not sufficiently moderated. And a lot of times the bullying and harassment that the young people talked about, it involved the virtual objects that gave them so much pleasure in other contexts. But there is a lot of, just like in real life, a lot of status competition. So it's very easy to know how much a virtual object costs in most of these social games. So if all you have in your closet are inexpensive virtual objects, then you can be made fun of for that. If you only have free items, you can be made fun of for that.
In the
Um,
virtual space.
in the virtual space. Yes. And that's one of the, it's something that, when I talk about this research, I said it's one of the reasons why the young people are always asking for the virtual currency because these virtual objects matter. And our research
Mm.
indicated this, and industry research shows it over and over again that a lot of young people consider their avatars in their favorite game as more important. The clothes and the way that the avatar looks is more important than what they look like when they're out in the physical world. And so, and our participants talked about that as well, that it was really important that the avatar have the best and that the avatar was in line with who they felt inside. The thing that makes that, so that sounds great, but that's also why the bullying and the harassment can be so painful in those spaces because you're there, you're trying to create this expression of yourself that's authentic, and then someone comes along and bullies you. And the young people told stories about that. One of the things that I think is important, I had read about it, and then when I heard the young people talking about it, it just yeah, so you can now buy, like the games are getting better about different skin tones. So,
Mm.
and we talked to, the young people, yeah, like, we're all different colors. So they're looking and they're happy about that. They talked about how when they were younger, you couldn't, there was just usually just a dark skin or a default skin. But now, they can pick different skin tones and they're happy about that. But one of the things that happens, and several of our Black participants told stories about this, it's called digital blackface. So you will be there in your gaming space, and another avatar will come up to you wearing, having a dark skin and, typing in ways with references and things that make you think, oh, this person is also Black. And then as soon as, so I'm just thinking about some of the stories, as soon as one of the kids in our study, you let down your guard, and then the person who is in digital blackface will
Mm.
turn on you and start calling you names. And we heard stories like that, or stories where you're in a game where you have to be picked for something and no one will pick you, or you walk into a space and there are people carrying Nazi flags and wearing KKK hoods because those things are for sale as well in many of these Roblox experiences.
Wait,
So
wait, wait. I'm
that
sorry to interrupt you. Those things are for sale as well.
yes,
I don't think I knew that. Okay. Wow.
not in every Roblox experience, but in some of
So,
these Roblox experiences. And when you're exploring, you don't necessarily know in advance. And especially, so the young people we talked to had been playing Roblox,
yeah.
since they were 6 or 7. And so the oldest, would tell stories about when you're young and you don't know anything about where you're going. Um, and you stumble upon these spaces where that kind of thing is happening. So basically, I'll just kind of summarize by saying that what can happen in these spaces are the, toxic psychosocial dynamics that are fueled by racism and classism and sexism and homophobia that happen out here in the physical world are happening in these digital spaces. And what makes it very troubling for me as a child advocate, and what also tells me here's something that I can do about it, they are fueled by the chosen revenue streams of these platforms. Like the design of these platforms takes away the incentive for the platform to do a lot to get rid of it. Like I said, there's a reason, so you yeah, like so selling, Nazi flags and KKK hoods, that should be easy to just say, no, we shouldn't sell those.
Right.
But they do. And that kind of allowing that kind of racist expression makes money in the
Yeah.
same way that it makes money on social media.
Yeah. Wow. Wow is what I'm saying. And I look in the chat, I see a whole bunch of wows. Dr. Casilli, I don't think many of us knew the extent to which classism and racism really pervade these spaces that either our children are connected to or children's children are connected to. Dr. Desmond, how would you add to this in terms of things that you're seeing as
Whew.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Dr. Benfer, I just want to plus one to everything that she's already said. And I think listening to you speak, it really underscored a few things for me. One is thinking about kind of the ways in which these platforms, whether it's social gaming or social media, are training our children's nervous systems. And I'm really concerned about that. In particular, is thinking about the constant need for performance, the constant need for comparison, and this constant vigilance that happens across platforms is something that we should be actively thinking about. And when you are always thinking about how you look online, it becomes harder to slow down and to ask how you actually feel, what you actually believe, and who you really want to be in your heart of hearts. In my work, harm shows up in at least three places. I'll talk about grief and bullying and conflict. And what I've learned is that these platforms can keep young people emotionally activated, constantly worried about what's coming through their feed. It's never ending. And there's no like natural off switch unless you have had conversations with your children about how to disconnect. And because outrage and drama get attention, the environment can reward cruelty, humiliation, and escalation. And we have learned over the last couple of years that many social media platforms optimize for the coolest, harshest things. And so it's not just your child searching for it, it is what platforms have pushed in front of your children as well. And so knowing that and understanding how these algorithm systems work, I think is critically important. For Black children and families, the impact is compounded by at least two realities. First, Black youth in my work often use social media to process real loss, whether it is death, whether there's a loss of a friend, or any form of loss. And in my research, we see that social media is a space where young people can mourn publicly, keep memories alive, and check on each other when things are happening in the world. That can be community care, which I think is important. However, it can also become a grief on a loop, pain on a loop, violence on a loop, videos circulating. We've seen it recently, rumors spreading, disrespect shows up under memorial posts, and kids get exposed to trauma over and over again through their phones. And that repeated exposure can produce numbness and anxiety and rage and hopelessness as well. And then I won't touch too much on the bullying conflict because I think Dr. Benford hit on that a lot. But what I do want to get at is this important point around language and institutions. Here's the thing. Institutions, whatever you are, oftentimes misread Black youth online. Posts that are grief or joking or everyday neighborhood talk can be interpreted as criminal intent. And that leads to surveillance and punishment instead of support. So the goal is not panic, the goal is context and care and protection. But we need adults who can read the digital neighborhood with cultural competence and treat online grief and real grief with real accuracy and take bullying seriously as a mental health issue and interpret conflict early before it spills offline.
Awesome. Wow. Well said. Just kind of uh can you talk? It's just a lot. Can you talk about how social media, social gaming, and AI impact? You all kind of alluded to it, but this notion of social feedback. So the response or the immediate response we get after doing something, whether it's online or offline. How does this world, this social media, social gaming world, how does it impact that? I think you guys have talked about it, but can you just expound a little bit more, particularly as we think about folks really as young as 3 and 4 and 5 in school age, and then thinking about the lifespan, and then teens, and then young adults, and then middle-aged Gen Xers like myself. How does this impact us as throughout the lifespan, this notion of social feedback or responses we get after we do something?
This is one of the things that is, I guess, my key, my key message. And some of my earlier work is on the importance of integrated sensory experiences and real physical world feedback. So social feedback, yes, but even just, and I'll use an example that I often use, which is the difference between stepping outside without any headphones or anything and hearing the wind, seeing the wind blowing through the trees, feeling
Mm,
the wind on your skin. That kind of integrated social experience, the integrated sensory experience is essential to
yeah.
our overall well-being. And I like to start with that so that when we think about the difference between physical social feedback,
Mhm.
which will come with my tone of voice. How quickly do I respond to you? What is my face doing when I do it? Um, there's all kinds of things that we're picking up on, and some of us are better at it than others. We do different things, and this is also like you learn a lot about a person's patterns of feedback when you get to spend time with them in, the physical world. You're sharing physical space with them. You learn like some people don't want to make eye contact when they talk, and you realize, oh, that's just how so and so is. Um, when we are communicating and our communications are mediated through a machine, we don't really know why the feedback comes to us in the way that it comes to us. And with social media, I'll say the example that really I think drives the point home is timing.
Mm,
You can post something on social media and you could see if your friends are online and they may not respond to it, but they might not have seen it. Like it's tempting to think that they see what you see, but they don't. And so, but then you can easily make up all these stories and say, like, oh, now everybody hates me, or my post was so stupid and cringe, and so now nobody wants to say anything because they don't know what to say. Or, you can
right,
go all over the place with a timing cue that only in the physical world can you really, do you really have a shot at making sense of a timing cue that's accurate? But online through mediated communication, not so much. And in social gaming, the machine mediated feedback that you're getting, the social feedback, is very distorted to support the interests of the game. And so when you just think about like what is chosen as feedback, so you can hear voices depending on the game. You get the voice chat, but it's also about like, can you get picked for a team? Are are people liking, giving you a thumb up at your skin? Are they emoting at you in a way that means like something positive versus something negative? It's all kinds of things, but that's all machine mediated. And so it is working, it's a form of expression, working with what you've got available, but it's not what somebody might do if they could do anything they wanted to respond to you. So, and I can't wait to hear what Dr. Patton's going to say. But the difference between physical world feedback and machine mediated feedback, I think that difference cannot be emphasized enough,
mm,
particularly when you're in what I consider a recklessly monetized environment. That's what I would say. Social gaming platforms are recklessly monetized, and that social feedback component is designed to create an anxiety that makes you want to shop.
yeah, no, you're right. Before you jump in, Dr. Desmond, the chat again is blowing up. Someone is, yeah, snapping, hearts are ablaze. Someone says we use a mindful practice with 4 and 6 year olds in their home. 5 things you see, 4 things you hear, 3 things
Mhm.
you feel, two
Mm.
things you smell, 1 thing you taste. Complimenting Dr. Priscilla, your integrated sensory experience framework. Take it away, Dr. Desmond.
Yeah, I want to be clear. Dr. Benford is really calling us towards human connection. We cannot lose human connection in the age of AI and technology. As you were talking, Dr. Benford, I was thinking about my dog. And when I take him for a walk, he puts his snout in the air and he just pauses. He smells the air. He lets the wind hit his face. And then I live on a block with a bunch of kids. And I've never seen them embrace the world around them. They're getting somewhere quickly. I mean, it's cold now, but like generally, people are just moving really quickly. There's no embracing of just the world around us. And I think that's exactly what is happening to us and to our young people in this age of AI and technology. So let me just break it down a little bit. So when I think about social feedback, for me, it's like the thing we get after we do something, right? So it's a laugh, a like, a comment,
Right.
silence, being ignored, being screenshotted. And for teens, that feedback is not small, as we've already heard. It is big, and it's how they learn who they are, what is valued, and what gets punished. And that drives me wild that that's kind of what it's been reduced to in these tech systems. Now, social media changes social feedback in three big ways. One is it makes feedback measurable. Likes, views, shares, follower counts, that turns belonging into a scoreboard. And for young people who are still building confidence and identity, a scoreboard can start to feel like a measure of worth. Second, it makes feedback constant and hard to escape. You're constantly trying to figure out, did someone like my photo? Did someone respond to my post? Did you share my video? In the real life, that's just not how we connect with one another. Online, the moment can follow you. And so a post can be reposted, a screenshot can spread, a comment can reignite conflict for hours later. This is why kids can feel anxious and hyper aware and always on guard. The social world does not turn off when they leave school. And then lastly, social media makes feedback curated by AI. So the platform is not just showing your child what their friends post, it is deciding what to boost, what to repeat, and what to place right in front of them. So if the algorithm keeps feeding drama and humiliation or conflict, it teaches kids that this is the way to get attention. Again, algorithmic feeding drama, humiliation, conflict teaches children how to get attention. So if
Mm.
it feeds creativity, but what if it fed creativity and care and joy and learning? What if that was the anchor for what our children were seeing online? So I think that we have choices here, but one of the things that I'm really clear about is that we are living in the imaginations of other people who don't know our kids, who don't know
Yeah.
our families, who don't know our communities. We have to think about the kind of advocacy efforts that need to happen in this space as well.
Well said. Dr. Desmond, Dr. Cecilia, the chat's blowing up. I'm going to just pause a little bit and ask two questions. The first is one attendee asks, how do we reach out to parents who might not have this information, who might be unaware? This idea that really others are kind of in control in some ways on the digital space. What can we do? How do we connect to those parents?
You gotta talk. What I'm learning is that parents are really concerned about these tech issues, but they feel a little embarrassed because maybe they're not as tech savvy as their young person
Yeah.
and they don't know who to turn to. I would say let that go as much as you can. I know that it's not easy, but another parent is probably in the same boat that you are, and just talk about what you're seeing, what you're hearing. And then, ask questions like, what are people doing with their young people? How are they getting information? But one of the things I would love to see happening is parents like connecting around the kind of digital world they want to see for their young people. The reality is that the digital world has been thrusted upon you. You had no choice, no decision, and now you're living in it and responding to it. That doesn't have to be, right? We can make different choices. We can push back, and I think we should be pushing platforms, whether they're social gaming platforms or whether they are social media platforms, to create the kind of environments that we think our children feel safe in. One mechanism that you might consider is to talk to advisory boards. I sit on a content advisory board at TikTok. I sit on a safety advisory at Spotify, and I sit at one at Exxon. I would love for parents to throw us their questions and their comments and their concerns so that we can translate them, add research to it, and then advocate to C-suites about the kind of experiences you want to see for your young people.
So if folks were going to talk to, excuse me, my light went off. If folks were going to talk to an advisory board, perhaps we'll send that information off post this conversation. But that's huge. That's huge. Giving parents agency. Thank you, Dr. Desmond. Dr. Cecilia, another question in the chat. Any resources on how to monitor my kids' virtual interactions? I have full access to their account, but I feel like I don't know what to do for potentially problematic messages and invites. Any tips?
Uh, my main tip is to make the effort, and you will probably be rebuffed initially, but make the effort to have curiosity-driven conversations with your young people about what it's like in these gaming spaces. Um, I talked to the young people. That part of the project, that phase of the project was several months talking to young people, and we asked them, do they talk to their parents? Most of them said no.
Mm,
Why don't they talk to the parents? Because they didn't think the parents wanted to hear about the games. And I've seen this in other similar reports that there's a sense, a lot of young people carry a sense that parents think that these gaming environments are just not real. And so if you're upset about what happened in it, that you just need to get over yourself.
mm,
And so my advice is to recognize that these worlds are very salient for
yeah,
young people. What happens in these worlds, it affects young people deeply. And it isn't actually a matter of willpower. Like you can't just get over it. There is research about how what happens to you in an immersive virtual environment can actually be more painful than what happens to you in the physical world. And so my first piece of advice is to do everything you can to open up that communication channel. And then we adults, we know what it's like to experience racism, harassment, these sorts of things. And so we can talk about how we've dealt with these experiences. When
sure.
I was interviewing the young people, that was one of the things that we talked about is saying,
Yeah.
I remember something like that happening to me in the physical world. And I think that's really important. The other thing, and this is something that Dr. Patton was talking about earlier, very at the very beginning, um, in your research explores this, Dr. Patton. But what happens in these uh, online spaces spills out into the physical world. So we heard from the young people like a lot of the terms, like being a default. Being a bacon, that's a slur, inside the game. It refers to just different, aspects of the virtual objects, but it's not, you don't want to be that. And so, and
Mhm.
that they'll call you that in the real, in the physical world. Like kids get beat up in the physical world because they're considered nerdy online. And so it's really important to open up that channel. And then the other thing I would say though is, kind of going to what Dr. Patton said, collective action. Uh, Getting involved, so my organization, Fair Play, we have a grassroots arm, the Screen Time Action Network, and parents can join and work um, for the rules and regulations that we need. And I do encourage, Dr. Patton was talking about this too, taking an Afrofuturist lens as we think about like, what do we want these to look like? And for me, I would say, one of the things, that a regulation that is we can already use some of the laws that are on the books right
Yeah.
now around children's data privacy. And those rules are not enforced sufficiently. And I think about something that the documentary filmmaker Shalini Katanaya said, data rights are the unfinished business of the civil rights movement. And, what she was talking about is, the civil rights movement is about discrimination in physical spaces, and the data rights movement is about discrimination in these virtual spaces. And so we still have work to do. And, there are organizations like Fair Play. We're not the only one. It's a movement. Thank goodness it's a movement, but it's the organization that I am part of, and I love it. And that's what we're working on with the Kids Online Safety Act and with other, our AI chat bill and other bills that are, there are a lot of organizations who have signed on, helped to work on it. And that's something that you can be a part of by joining an organization like Fair Play, being able to comment on these bills.
Yeah, yeah. Parents have agency, and should be heard. Parent experts, clinicians also have agency and should be heard. You guys, the chat is really blowing up. I mean, folks, Dr. Desmond, Dr. Cecilia are called to action even in this moment. One of our attendees said, I just downloaded Roblox so I can learn more about my 17-year-old nephew's experience. I've totally dismissed him talking about gaming before and been more judgmental than curious. So the conversation, even in this moment, has activated one of our attendees to delve a little deeper, maybe to develop a perspective taking for youth. I just have a couple more questions. Oh, it's 2:50, at least in Chicago. Okay, I'm coming. Question. We talked about it a little bit, but I want us to delve just a little further into what can parents and practitioners, do to provide Black children alternative forms of entertainment and engagement. Because a lot of this, right? Social media, I got my cell phone. My 11-year-old is asking, Mom, when can I have my cell phone? I'm not there yet, son, but I know eventually he'll have one, right? But what are the alternatives, right, for entertainment and engagement and connection?
I'll jump in here.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm reminded of a video I just watched last night of Angela Davis, and she was talking about how when we reflect on slavery, we only remember the trauma and pain of slavery, and we miss the ways in which Black freedom making included joy, how we shared food and create art and find beauty in the hardest and most difficult times of our life. And so for me, an alternative entertainment is not about taking social media or social gaming away. It's about giving Black and brown teens and children a way to feel seen and to feel steady and alive. And I think that's about teaching young people about joy planning. So joy planning is this concept that I teach in my class at Penn called A Journey to Joy. And it's a simple plan that I think can help a child build a menu for activities that restore them, connect them, and give them agency.
You say it's joy
Expand
planning, that's Dr. Planning.
joy planning, yes, sorry.
Yes,
And
nice.
expands digital and physical life because our kids live in both. And the goal is not necessarily to be less online, the goal is to be more resourced. And so here's what it looks like. Start with three questions. What makes you laugh? What helps you calm down? What makes you feel proud? And I think those answers can become the foundation. And then build a joy menu in three lanes: micro joys, 5 to 15 minutes that you can do something without any money. Medium joys, these are 30 to 60-minute things that you can do with family and friends. And then deep joys that take a little bit longer. Micro joys might be listening to music and movement, a quick walk, or cooking. Medium joys could be playing basketball, being in the park, doing your hair, talking, a library trip. And the deep joys are those anchors, right? That is a weekly program, a faith community, a mentorship space. I think we have to bring young people back to joy, defining joy for themselves, and having a joy plan informs the kind of how you show up online, how you engage others online, making decisions about how much time you're spending online and when it's time to take a step back. And what I've learned is that I'm seeing a group of young people emerge
Hmm.
in which they're making different decisions about how they show up online. Online isn't everything to them anymore, and they're critical of AI and online spaces. And in part, I'm seeing these young people who have a sense of joy for themselves that they have defined for themselves, and they understand that their being and how they show up in the world is bigger than just their digital life. And so I think if we can help young people define and experience more joy, they
Yeah.
will make better decisions. And hopefully that's rubbing off on the parents too.
Yeah, that's huge. I need that joy plan. Can you just repeat it again, those three questions? That's huge.
Yeah, so the three questions are, let me just make sure I have them here. Um, yeah, now I'm going to forget them.
I think one
Um,
was what makes you laugh?
yeah, what makes you laugh? I'll put them in the chat so that everyone has
Okay.
them. Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, hearts were flying. Folks were really connected to that joy plan. Um, Dr. Oh my goodness, we only got 5 minutes. Dr. Crisili, I'm going to talk low and slow, as they say. What would you like to say as it relates to fostering really other forms of engagement and connection for young people?
I love the idea of a joy plan. And I would add is just like such a huge fan of the physical world that sort of mm, asking, the kids, like getting them, thinking about the physical world differently. And again, I think that shift can happen more easily if without denigrating or dismissing, yeah, I just sort of dismissing what's happening in the virtual worlds. But really making the case through experience, not argument, making the case through experience for the real different sorts of pleasures that the physical world offers. And I think the key to being successful with that is to think about what's happening during adolescence, which
Mm,
is a time like we often think, oh, adolescence is when the hormones are crazy and everybody's like, we have to worry about them because it's such a dangerous, they're going to do something silly. But don't think about it like that. Think about it like adolescence is a time of discovery and opportunity. This is when young people they need to, as part of their development, they need to form relationships outside of the family. That's so important.
mm,
So thinking about like, hey, what do you like to do? Supporting that, like basically supporting relationship building with other people. And then also thinking about like the need for self-expression, that self-fashioning that I talked about, that is such an important need during adolescence, the need to experience new things because you're trying to figure out who you are and what you like. And
yeah,
so that's really important. Like, so creating all these new opportunities for the young people who like maybe it's not even your own kids, like, I, with my nieces and nephews, that can be like just you never know. Like it can be something that maybe doesn't even bloom until a year or two later, and like not needing for yourself the immediate positive feedback. And I think if we remember ourselves as adolescents, we can remember we might have been looking sullen and like kind of rolling our eyes during some sort of experience, but deep down there was something we're like, this is kind of interesting. And later on, it was a seed that grew. So thinking about that and remembering this is a time of opportunity and discovery where self-expression, finding community, as Dr. Patton was talking about, that's so important, and supporting that in offline spaces in any way you can.
that is so huge. That is so huge. We have maybe one more minute. I'm gonna just read a couple of attendees' comments. Someone said this has been so helpful. This was a wonderful conversation. Love the information. So again, hearts are flying. Folks are really appreciative. In our last minute, Dr. Desmond, Dr. Priscilla, what would you like to share with our attendees? You said so much, but is there anything else you'd like folks to know? Even myself, my children are still a little bit young, so we don't have the cell phones and we're not immersed just yet, but I know it's coming. And so I'm trying to get ahead, like you suggest, and not succumb really to the whims of AI and social media, but really get ahead of it and also be that parent who is an advocate and advocating on councils, etc. That's it. Any last 30 seconds from each of you all, just some parting words.
Well, I just want to, say again, collective action. It's crucial
Yeah.
that without regulation, these companies are going to continue to use what children want as a lure. And those are community, the feeling of mastery, self-expression. And you use that as bait for commercial extraction. And they'll do it because they can. So, and it's very profitable. But we can stop them. Like we don't have to have an internet like this. This is not inevitable.
Yeah,
And sharing that message with your young people, that was, and I'll just say you can look at my report Buying to Belong, but at the end we asked the young people, what would you like, how would you like the games to be?
sure.
And they had some great answers. So
Excellent.
yeah.
Thank you. Dr. Desmond, take us away.
Yeah, there's a lot of scary information out there for parents about their children in tech, and I would say to take a really informed approach. It's not all bad. A lot of young people are actually doing some cool, innovative, exciting, and interesting things. Learn more about that. Learn more about their communities. And make sure that you research where you're getting your information from. Take an evidence-based approach in this space. Human connection is key, y'all. I think we need to bring people back to human connection. Make sure your children, your teens are out um, feeling the wind, playing outside, ask them deep questions about their technology lives, and I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, thank you, Doctors Desmond Patton and Corcelia Benford. This was an awesome conversation. And thank you, attendees. You will receive a webinar. Oh, thank you for joining. You'll receive a survey. Um, thank you. You'll receive a webinar survey this week. We definitely appreciate your feedback. And we look forward to seeing you actually next week, episode 2. We'll be talking about Rooted in Love, empowering Black parents to build healthy connections and community. Okay, see you next week. Bye bye.